Welcome to this session on working with the transaction player. So we're going to take a look at our transaction player and some of the things we can do to rearrange transactions, even suppress transactions, so that we can actually change the way in which the model is built. So as you know, if I can simply unplay all the transactions and I can go through and replay the different things we have done in order to build this model. Now, if I right-click on any transaction, you'll see a list of different actions you could do on that transaction, such as rebuilding it or splitting it, even suppressing it. We can also delete a transaction, or we can even copy and paste to move the transactions around and change the order. And in the workbook, you'll see a list of those different actions and a definition of just what they do. So let's start by taking a look at one of these functions. So for instance, I'm going to select one of my transactions, right-click, and I'm going to select suppress. So what that means is that transaction is not going to get played. Notice that it unplayed everything up to that point, and I can simply replay those. So this transaction was the one that made this a list of points. So now when I replay that, I'm never going to get all those multiple lines because I don't have those points. If I, again, right-click on that, and I can unsuppress that transaction, and now when I play, I get a different result. We can also consolidate transactions. So sometimes after you've built your script, you may want to clean it up a little bit, consolidate things. So for instance, I could select these first two transactions and select Consolidate Transactions. Now this is an operation that cannot be undone, so it's going to give you a warning, but we'll go ahead and say yes. So you can see now my first transaction consolidated those. It adds the base CS 0.1 and 0.2 all in one transaction. If I were to unplay and then play that, all three of those things happen in that one transaction. Let's go ahead and play everything. Now we can also split a transaction. So if I have multiple things in a single transaction, I could right-click here and I could select Split Transaction. And that, again, is a action that cannot be undone. We're going to select yes. And now you see it's turned that into three transactions. Add the base CS, add 0.1, add 0.2. And again, so if I play it, those just become separate steps. And we'll go ahead and play everything. We can also reorder the transactions, so you can basically cut and paste. So for instance, I could select this change 0.2 transaction, and I could cut that transaction. And then I could come up here, maybe I want to put it right after where I first added that 0.2. So then I want to select the transaction after that, right-click, and I'm going to select Insert. Insert always puts it before the current transaction. So now we have add 0.2, change 0.1, and then we add the lines. And let's go ahead and replay everything. So now we're going to immediately get the list of points for 0.1, and then we're going to add the lines. So we're just changing the order in which things are done. We could also select a number of transactions, even all the transactions, and there is an option to rebuild. And this will simply rebuild the transactions in a more efficient way that will achieve the same result. Again, cannot be undone. So you can see we now end up with only 3 transactions, but the end result is the same. We don't get all those same iterations in between, but if we've reached a point where we know this is the end result that we want, we can clean up our list of transactions in that way, so that we now get a script which adds the base CS, adds point 1 and point 2, as the list as they were finally defined, and then adds the line 1 with the list functions in there as they were finally defined. And it ignores all those other iterations. So important to keep your transactions neat and orderly. Those are some tools that will help you do that, and I recommend putting those to use. In the next session, we'll start building the stacking model.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.